friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time, and I'm here for another Monday This and That vlog where I talk about many different topics, keeping you updated on whatever's going on, be it the garden or projects, things that I'm preserving. Especially at this point, the rest of the videos you see through the week were shot at least 6 weeks prior. So Mondays are a great way to stay more updated on things that are current, especially when it comes to garden related items. So today the first topic is canning carrots. So no, these are not my own carrots. These are carrots I got from Misfits Market. Our carrots will be a while yet before they're ready to harvest. So this is what they look like all canned up. These are the rainbow carrots, and I already knew because of the purple carrots in there that they would color the water, which would possibly change the color of the other carrots. But I'm actually pretty happy with how they turned out. So I wanted to just describe what I did. I always raw pack everything. I simply took a stainless steel scrubber that I have that I just kind of ran across the carrots just to remove some of the excess little hairs and roots rather than peeling everything. Chopped them up, I put them directly in the jar, and then I also added a few cloves of garlic to each jar, which you'll see there's one right there, and it is pretty good that way. I thought I'd give it a try. We did already consume one jar just so I can see how they turned out. And then I always add just about maybe about a half teaspoon of the Celtic sea salt. I like using that one for canning because it is very coarse anyway, and it doesn't leave grit the way the Redmond real salt does. And so I use about just a half teaspoon of that per pint. And then I top off with my filtered rainwater, or you can do the same thing with the whatever water you want. Now, I find when I'm canning, raw packing things like carrots and so on, it's kind of difficult to stir out the bubbles. So what I do is I put the band on and then shake it really well, and then just kind of also do this on the counter to help work the bubbles up, and then take the lids off and then add more water as is necessary. And then you pressure can for pints when it comes to carrots for 25 minutes. And for us, that would be 10 pounds of pressure because of where we're at, which is common for most people. Some people who live up in the mountains need to go with 15 pounds for pressure if they're obviously, and you'll know your area. You just got, if you're new to pressure canning, you just got to figure out what your elevation is and then read the instructions for your canning on that. Usually, like with All American Canner, it comes with instructions and gives you times for various things. Now, I made the mistake early on when I first started canning carrots is I just assumed all vegetables were the same when it came to canning times. Well, they're not. So my first batch of carrots for the pints, I was canning for 75 minutes, 3 times as long as was needed, and then learned it only needed 25 minutes. So make sure whenever you're canning something new, go look up the times to make sure you're getting it right. Because even though it didn't seem to make the carrots any more soft than the ones I can at 25 minutes, there's no sense in wasting the energy it takes to go 3 times as long. And then, like I already said, the color from the purple carrots did leach into the water, which then did color the garlic and the yellow, especially the lighter yellow carrots, because some of the carrots in there were a real pale yellow, like this one. And so now it looks more pink. But the orange ones seem to hold their color pretty well. And I still think it looks cool, and it was a fun thing to try. So I seen they had the rainbow carrots and decided I'd just buy a bunch of them and get some canned up. I usually don't can the carrots we grow. One, because we don't get a ton of them, and because they're so good straight from the garden. I like to try to eat them, as many of them fresh as we can. And with canning in mind, don't forget we've got the Canon Collaboration coming up. So that's going to be towards the end of August is probably when I'm going to be closing that out. So you still have plenty of time. But since a lot of people are doing the canning during the summer, that's why I'd like to give you to the rest of the summer to get some really great photos taken of your canning projects. And then once it comes time for me to close that out, you'll just send all of the photos. I only actually use 3 per person, but you can send several, that's fine. And you'll send those all in one email to raincountryhomestead@gmail.com, titled Canning Collaboration, so I know which folder to drop that in. Please do not send them each photo in a bunch of separate emails. Send them all in one. That makes it so much easier for me when you just do it all in one. And it also makes it easier for me if you make your photos nice, clean, and clear, making sure that everything's laid out nicely so people know what it is, because I'm not going to go through. I'm only going to attribute the photos to whoever sends them according to the name they tell me to put on there. And it can be a channel name, it can be your full name, it can be your first name, whatever you want me to put. Make sure you make that clear in the email body, by the way. Make sure you're actually using email to send those to my email, not sending them as a text, which shows up only as a phone number with no name. And if that's the only way you have to send it to me, at least in the body, make sure you put your name and your email address in case I need to contact you. Otherwise, I won't know who you are, like what happened with my dehydrating collaboration. I had a lot of photos I had to put in there with no name because I couldn't get a hold of the person. I tried. I don't think they ever got my messages, because typically when I send an email in reply to something that came in from a phone text message, which only gives me a phone number, it doesn't go through most of the time. And some other news is we did get a couple of young hens from some friends. I decided this time I didn't want to start with baby chicks, so I let them raise them. I was going to just go ahead and buy them from them. But since I'm always sharing my dried herbs, my herb starts from my garden, tomato starts on any of my excess, because I always start a ton, and then any excess I usually just give away because I only have so much space for tomatoes. And so I gave them a ton of tomato starts, herb starts, and more. And so they just gave me the chickens. So that was basically our barter, which is typically what we do. We do a lot of bartering for things back and forth. You know, here, I'll give you this, and then I'll give you that. It's mostly just being generous with each other is how it works. But we always approach it with the idea that I'm willing to pay you. So instead of just assuming that someone's going to give us something. So anyway, we got a couple of new hens, and their names are Silver and Gracie. That's what I named them. And yes, I name my hens because we keep chickens mostly for the sake of their eggs. And then I like them to have a long, healthy life. And my buffs especially, they just keep laying clear up to the end. I've only lost one this year. First time I've ever lost a chicken. And she just simply died of old age. And I'm assuming the other buffs are not going to be too far behind, even though they mostly look really healthy. They are 6 years old now. We still need to replenish our chickens and always keep some young ones. And anyway, my buffs are still laying. We're still getting more eggs than we need. But my goal is to have at least a couple of new hens added every year, especially at this point now that my other chickens are getting older, so that we can always keep in the eggs. But our chickens do more for us than just that. I mean, they give us enjoyment, entertainment. I see them quite a bit as pets. 3 of my older hens, they are very attached to me. They follow me around the yard. They love it when I pet them. They love to get attention. And they're my pets. They're my buddies. So yes, I do name my chickens. But the other reason why is it helps me keep track of who's who, and if there's any issues, if anyone's got some health issues, then, you know, having a name to attach to their specific personality and appearance, because they all have their own appearance, helps me be able to keep them sorted out. And to me, just giving them numbers is cold. I can't do it. They have to have names. Like I said, they're more my pets, but they're also our slug eaters. They keep our slug population down. They also fertilize our gardens, and they also till up a lot of our garden areas when we allow them to roam in there from fall through early spring. And then another big thing that's been going on, and we're going to have a video series. I don't know how many videos are going to be in there because Pat just keeps shooting videos. And the list of videos in the folder just for this project, there's a lot in there. I don't know how many, but there's a lot. So I don't know how many videos I'm going to break it up into, but basically what's happening is we're really amping up, no pun intended, our solar power, mostly the battery bank this year, which meant we needed to expand our power room, is what I'm calling it. It's also where we keep our filtration systems. We have an RO, and then we use Berkeys in the buckets. And that's right now, that's all taken out. I can still filter the water, but it's outside now, which it won't work during the winter because it will freeze up. But we currently don't have any solar power. We're not able to run anything off of that because all the batteries have been taken out. Nothing is hooked up right now as Patrick is rebuilding all this. And then eventually we're going to get a whole new battery bank and stick it in there because our old batteries just really aren't cutting it for us anymore. So we just needed to renew the whole system and go with something better. And we'll keep you updated on what those are, what the brand is as we get closer to that. But I know the first one's going to be a very minimum of 6 weeks out, the very first video in that series. So yeah, that's happening. And there, we've got some other changes we're working on in the garden. We still have that other area, the arch cattle panel area. It's actually the original one. The cattle panels we put in place mostly just to give my squash, peas, beans, and stuff to climb on. But Patrick put in a second one a few years ago and then last year covered it. And the results I got out of the covered area with it getting progressively colder here all the time it was just like night and day, the difference between the things that I planted in there and the things that were growing outside. And so we want to get that other area, the first arch cattle panel area, covered. And it doesn't really make sense to worry about it now as late in the season as it is. But by the end of the year, I want that covered because then that also gives the chickens more areas they can hang out and stay dry in the winter time. And then I want to keep them blocked off from the greenhouse because they make it so they get dust all over everything in that greenhouse. And there's just a lot of things that we prefer not to be dusty. So anyway, that's kind of what's going on there. The back and forth, hot, cold. We've had some hot days, but really, really cold nights. For a lot of my plants, especially my perennials, they love it. They don't care. They're doing great. My blackberries, my grapes, my currants, especially the currants. Like I said last week, I know I can depend on those. Any of my perennial herbs are doing wonderful. My honeysuckle, including the ones I made from starts, where I just broke off a branch, stuck it in some root to them, and stuck it in some dirt. Those ones are doing beautiful. So I'm getting tons of honeysuckle. But the annuals, not the tomatoes in the greenhouse, they're doing beautiful. And the cucumbers in the greenhouse are doing beautiful. But the other things like the zucchini, even though it likes cooler weather, and my pumpkin, they're just really struggling right now. And they're starting to get some new leaves, but the hot days and then the super cold nights they're just not loving it. So I'm hoping this weather will even out so that and be more consistent. I really like to see that stuff grow. Normally zucchini, we can get plenty. And then one more little tip I wanted to throw out there. So I had a video that came out recently where I was talking about foods to keep in your rigs for travel. Mostly the kind of stuff we keep in there, stuff that I know is going to last a long term. But if you're putting in things like, some people mentioned peanut butter pouches. I didn't even know they made such things. But if you're doing that, I mean, that's a great idea, peanut butter, almond butter, whatever it is. The problem with something like that is if you're keeping it in your car and you're keeping it in there all summer long, is those could easily go rancid. So I highly recommend if you're doing that, you constantly work through those things and, change them out. I would say change them out once a week in the hottest part of the summer. Trade them out for a new pouch and then use the older one up right away and then just keep doing that because you want to make sure you're working through that. But it's also a great idea to have such things stored in your rig so that if something happens, you forget and you don't think to pack food. It's there. You go on the road and then somebody's hungry and well, here you go. So just a few things to consider when it comes to that. Well, that's it for my this and that for the week. Any thoughts, ideas, comments you'd like to share, please put them in the comment section down below. And thanks for watching. Take care and God bless.